Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. It's a continuation of our 2023 budget deliberations. So I will call the meeting to order. And there's another agenda here I'm missing, aren't I? I just signed out of my iCloud. You paper copy of that?
There should be one on your desk. There's one.
Okay, so we'll begin with the adoption of the agenda, and there's an addition for the committee as a whole under 4.1 for member large applications under FOIP 17 and 19. So can I ask for approval of the agenda? Okay, thank you. Okay, that's carried.
Your Worship, just so that you may want to recognize Councillor Dean being the one
Right.
stream and check his mic.
Okay, we have most council here in the chamber, and then online we have Councillor Alan Dean join us. Check in with Alan. Okay, Councillor, sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, and we can hear you, so perfect. That's good, all our technicals out of the way. We'll continue with budget deliberations then, so I'll hand it over to... Are you going to take us through the rest?
Yes, Council, as yesterday, I believe Council had discussed to reallocating to the general operations and capital, but no decisions have been made. So I think we're at that point where council just needs to indicate their preference in regards to each of the projects so that we can allocate them to the appropriate area within the
Okay, Councillor Wilhelm.
Thank you, Chair. Through the two roles, be able to get the budget number for what the operating budget is.
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, thank you for warning that for me. So if I total budget for 2020, the expense budget, move capital, move appreciation, and move all acquisitions, the operating budget for the county is $22,400,000 approximately.
Thank you. So the reason why I asked that was I was trying to come up with a fair way to think how we can break out this $2 million. And we had already kind of a good how to do it. And then we have another one. So I just looked at the numbers. Budgets. If we do a figure of $700,000 to the operating budget, 3% to that budget. Just you guys. If we take the remaining, out of that remaining 2 million, which would be 1.3 million to move to operating, that's an increase of 5% to the operating budget. So in my opinion, that seems like a fair split. If that's the way we're going to go with this $2 million, it's a significant increase to capital with a 5% increase to operating as a fair split between the two. I'm just not sure what your guys' thoughts were on that. And then we had discussed on the operating side, the top two sections being kind of what we'd approved would be where to go. So then that would leave, if we were splitting it in the way that I think would be fair, that would leave $300,000 into that third section for the operating budget to increase. So that's my thoughts on it. I did a little bit of thinking about it last night, so.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you guys, I can discuss further, or?
Counselor Kush?
My thoughts, I going through this here last night, obviously the top two lines on operating, we were in agreement, so I think that's gonna be a go. As far as the capital, we have a prioritized list here from administration for what they see, the needs from the county perspective. What I'd like to see currently is on that, there, I guess, a second column that needs over the, counting flagpoles, the cemetery parking, the C-can, works up to just over $100,000. Currently, that we can put that $100,000 extra into the bicentennial funding, which is just, fronting it until the other grants or whatever come in, and then when that $100,000 comes back, put it into whatever else in the operating engine they're looking for, but that would be my feel.
Okay. Anyone else? Counselor Wilhelm?
So on the operating side, I have 3 line items in that third section that I would like to see funded for the year, and which they amount to $239,114. And the 3 line items in that third section that I think I prioritize as should be included in the operating budget would be adding the infrastructure support staff, the municipal census, and the cost of living increase for the staff. Those 3 line items I think are, I could budge on the municipal census for sure, but adding staff and the cost of living increase to the staff, I think, are a really important thing to do, especially discussed yesterday with cost of living and the fact that we need to make sure that we're retaining staff moving forward. I think those 3 items are pretty important to include in our operating budget.
Counselor Williams?
Mine were sort of the same as Councillor Wilhelm. His infrastructure support and the remuneration for staff was the 2 highest priorities I had for the operating.
Sorry, which were the 2 highest?
Infrastructure support staff, the 6-month top line.
Yep.
And then the remuneration, 2% wage increase. I think that's pretty how it is.
Yep. Okay, anyone else? All right, I was leaning in the direction of, so first of all, I go up to the second line item here, and one of them is grades. And I guess I'm letting my background get the better of me here, but I think we really need to have a conversation around equipment and how we're dealing with equipment, and if we're going to, I don't understand why this organization built a $3.5 million shop if all we're gonna do is change oil. So,
Yeah, your worship, members of council, that was a $7 million shop?
oh, 7 million, sorry. That's much better.
For the clarity.
So, if equipment is a huge cost, it's not getting any less, and the equipment's not getting any easier to deal with. Are we gonna move, we're kind of taking that on a little bit more, or are we gonna move to leasing everything, are we gonna move to buying anything? It doesn't seem like we have a lot of answers in that direction, and I don't know where to go because I don't have numbers. So, to that end, I'd like to, I don't, 300,000 putting it in. I think we need a report on this to break it out a little bit better and see what it is that we're doing. If we can even knock a maintenance costs, we're gonna be saving a lot of money. That, and then the other one that for me is a top priority is actually the continuation of the ditching program for $125,000 under the operating. If we don't keep the water flowing away from the roads and we allow that ingress freezing and refreezing and thawing. And especially with I don't remember in my lifetime seeing the amount of freeze-thaw cycles that we've seen in the past probably 10 years. It seemed like it used to freeze and then it'd stay there until March, and then it'd thaw out. But now it's middle of January and plus 10, so I think this ditching program is actually money well spent. I don't have a problem with the remuneration end of things either. We've got to hang on to staff, and they've done a lot with a little in the last little while for sure. So those are my big ones. As far as the capital end is concerned, yeah, I can go with what everybody was staying with there, basically 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 is out. Councilor Williams?
On the capital side, one of the lower, like I think staff rank it a little bit lower, but I think it's quite a priority. Then some will water. It's like 75% done, and the last part is so they can actually use it and fill their trucks. So I think that should maybe rank a little higher, and it's not a huge ticket item, but I'd like to move that up the list somewhere if that can stay. I think that's pretty important.
I'll go with Councilor Cook and then Councilor Williams.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw another one out there. Like, when we were looking at this, we've kind of not looked at, and this is the farmer coming out in me, is that the ranking of number one, which is we really can't get out of, is the fire truck. But number two, for example, is there a possibility that we can do without one or two of those trucks? You know, like this. I'm throwing that out there because maybe we just keep one for an extra year. I don't know how the system works, but you know, that's a possibility. I don't have a problem with any of the other ones. The one that I did research a little bit was I think that I had some conversations last night, and that $100,000 that we're backstopping the bicentennial for is excessive. I was told that really that we could probably put on a hell of a celebration for 50,000. There's some wiggle room there. I like the fact that you know, the budget, there's some wiggle room there. So I would like to have staff understand that there's a possibility that can be shifted around. Other than that, I think we're on the right track.
I have a couple questions about some capital stuff. I guess we'll need that for decision making. And I think you guys talked about this yesterday, but we talked about so much it got lost in the mix. The hard luck stair replacement. What is the importance of that? Like, is it something, if we don't put that in now, it becomes a liability issue this year, or it's a significant cost increase? So I just want to know why that one's rated so high in our capital.
Your worship, members of council, through to Councillor Wilhelm, I believe based on our assessment of the infrastructure in regards to recreation, that's a major component for liability, so we assess it every 5 years. So the last time it was assessed was 5 years ago, and there was an indication that it's starting to deteriorate, and there are some boards that require, or stairs that require replacement since 5 years, and so the individual, I haven't seen the actual report. Have you, Richard, seen the report?
No.
But the report is recommending, and I believe, and again, we'll verify this, that in the next 2 to 3 that it should be replaced to the point where then it becomes a major replacement, right? Or costs associated with it, so you could probably put it off and for a year, right?
So, just to think about, we could procedurally make this work. Because today we're not setting the budgets, right? Today is just a preliminary discussion to provide you guys information so that you can come back to us in future meetings with what you want your budgets to be. So we can give you roundish numbers on both the operating and capital, and then you're gonna come back with refined budgets based off of that. So then at a council level, do we wanna set, I mean, obviously there's things on here we have questions about and things that we want to remain in the budget and things that could potentially be eliminated. Do we wanna set today, in my mind, or the major conversation, how much money should we allocate to capital? How much should we allocate to operating? And then knowing that we've agreed to potentially all the top line items on operating and the first set of lines on capital, how much additional funds do they have? Come back to us with the budget after that type thing. I mean, or is the mindset here, we're gonna decide what they should be budgeting on and give it to them for that?
So during the economic recovery plan, we basically cut 3 million out of capital. And check my numbers, but we used to be at 6, we went down to 3, is that correct? Roughly?
I believe so. And again, it varied from year to year, but I think the averages are around $6 million.
Yeah. And then we cut 15% out of operating. So, you know, if you go back, so if we're looking on the lean side of where we went to, it's on the capital side.
Right.
So I don't know that I don't know that the just to give the history on how much was cut out of each. And capital is one of those things where you're not gonna, if you cut out of the operating budget, you're gonna notice it today.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut out of the capital budget, you're gonna notice it in 2 years, 3 years.
Okay.
And you know, it's funny, I was driving home the other day, and one of the things I used to love about Alberta is, I used to make jokes when we travel across Canada, is, you know, we just hit Saskatchewan and then you're into that pavement that they had. Now it's the other way around. You come into Alberta and the roads are all destroyed. And that's at the provincial highway level. So it's no secret that everybody in Alberta has cut out of the capital end of things. The roads are falling apart here. There's a huge investment that needs to be made in capital at the provincial level and at the municipal level. And that's why, you know, when we look at adding new or building new or anything like that, I think it's absolutely crazy that people are applying for grants to build new things when we have all this crumbling infrastructure around them. So that's my philosophical. But I just want to give that history so that everybody understands the end that we really covered was the capital end here. And going back to my point on vehicles and our fleet, you know, $25,000, $450,000 in 5 3/4 ton and 1 ton trucks, tandem snowplow sander for $450,000, and then the graders at $300,000 for lease. So you look at that, that's roughly $2 million that you're spending on equipment in one single budget. If we can cut 20% or 10% out of, like, how do we get some of this equipment stuff under control? Mm-hmm. So that's a big piece, a big component that I'd like to make sure we look at. So that gives the history anyways, but I'm gonna go with Councillor Prestige and Councillor Wilhelm.
To the chair, to the administration, on these capital, like the trucks and the sander, and with the cost going up all the time, like, how good is this pricing? Like, when they come in, is it gonna be 10% more? I know on the truck end, it goes up every month. So you may order a truck now and it'll come in 10-15% more when you pick the truck up. So do we have that factored into this, or is, when the equipment comes in, we're gonna be scrambling to get more money?
Through your worship to all the council. Based on our quotes we got last year, that's what happened is we'd had significantly less than this for the trucks, and when the quotes came in, they were too high, so we believe we've taken that into account and added for a bit more per truck here. We're around 70 per 3/4 ton and the 100,000 for the 1 ton.
When was the last time you got a quote?
Well, we had a hard quote last year when we tried to purchase them. And I think Andres maybe had just some, and it's hard to get an actual quote unless you're committing to try to buy something too. So,
It was last spring when that quote came in.
You know, I think you should be getting quotes on this just before the budget. Cause
And
when I
you're-
was in sales, I did lots of quotes for budgetary, which is something that you did.
we could bring that back when the next time we meet for some budget meetings. We could have some better harder quotes on those.
Because on those three items, it's, you know, could be $100,000 difference. And where's that money gonna come from?
And the trick is to be as close as you can get without, I mean, this is a little bit like the Price is Right, you know, the closest one within $1 or the bid wins. But you know, we don't wanna be so high that we have residual funds left over, and you don't wanna be so low that we shot ourselves in the foot in the budget and can't afford it, so there's a sweet spot there somewhere. You look like you wanna say
Well,
something.
yeah, your worship, members of council, and we're understanding that we anticipate 2 more budget sessions. And again, I think Councillor Wilhelm made the comment is, if you can give us a general direction as we
Yeah.
begin to refine some of these and answer some of these questions, because again, yesterday in the conversation, which I think is a valid point that we need to go back, is we need to fix some of our roofs, right? And I would put that as a higher priority, because in the long run, it's gonna cost us more if we don't address those issues now. The stairs, for example, we'll bring back that report to see what it actually says. Can it be put off for a couple of years? So there is some refining of this as well, but if we can get that general, and I think Councilor Culkin said in regards to the economic development side of things, and there is other departments that require attention, and you need to address all that. So again, if it's 1.5 million in operating and 500,000 in additional in capital, we can make those numbers work and start to refine those. Nothing stops us from getting quotes for a vehicle. For example, the unit that I drive for the county is, I've been trying to look at replacing going on car loans. Unfortunately, can't get the vehicle in, and they won't give me a firm price unless I pre-order it. Right, so that you are dealing with those situations, right?
And on that equipment side, and this is why I think we need to have a look at the equipment side of things, because we're in a position that we've never been in before, where some of the manufacturers, well, and I guess I can just say Cat, they're actually, you can bring them a piece of equipment. They're running a program now where you can bring them a piece of equipment and they will completely overhaul the thing and then send it back to you. We've never had options like this before because of some of the supply chain issue. We can't get steel to build some of these things. The holdups that are occurring are really screwing things up. And I know we can't. There comes a time when you've got to replace equipment and you run it into the ground. But there's a sweet spot there somewhere where we can get the most reliably out of the equipment with a good maintenance program. And are we looking at that? Are we looking at overhauling the equipment rather than buying new? Are we looking at lease versus own? Or have we exhausted all these things? And that's the big issue that I'm seeing right now. We have a lot of assets and we need to manage them. we might need to look at the way we manage them is the thing. So I'd like to see a component of that come back, or a direction for that.
And your worship, members of council, and once the Director of Corporate Services comes in, there's an opportunity for Mr. Wilt to do some extra work for us in regards to that matter, and that was one of the things, is our equipment replacement calculations and what we do that, and he hasn't said yes yet, so I have to be nice.
And that's the good part about equipment is, you know, if we end up spending 5% less on equipment, the equipment, as long as we're looking after it properly, the equipment's really not gonna complain. We can't get away spending 5% less on staff, you know, so there's an area there that there's an opportunity, I think, and if people get it, if they're a little gentler on the equipment, if they realize that any money that's spent repairing equipment and being spent in those non-people areas, there's less money to go around in the operating side and wages and things like that. So I'm just trying to get the whole picture here is that I'll go with Councillor Wilhelm, then Councillor Culkin.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, is Al?
No, I was just saying you may want to check in
Yeah.
with him from time to time.
Councillor Dean, are you still with us? Can you hear everything?
Yeah, you bet, guys. I've been following the discussion, and great points made by all. Input that I would provide, I think, has been covered by everybody. So I'll just continue to listen and participate in the discussion.
Okay, sounds good. Councillor Wilhelm.
So my next comment will go right back to what you had brought up there, Reeve, was the fact that capital had taken the biggest hit in the budget cuts that had happened. So I'm going to go back to my first part that I said, and I think if we, because in my mind, you've got some pretty round numbers here. So these are ballpark, and I would guess the numbers were thrown out high ballpark just because you don't want to come in, you don't want to underestimate how much it's going to cost, right? So there is some wiggle room. Anyways, I know they're not specific, but so knowing that we've made the biggest cuts to capital, I'm wondering if we want to look at kind of a round dollar figure to add to both, and seeing as capital did take the biggest hit, if we give them another $700,000, that's a 23% increase in the budget from last year. So we go from 3 million to 3.7 million. So it's a 23% increase. So it's a significant increase to the budget. What's remaining then is the 1.3 million, which would go then to operating, and then it's going to go to staff to realize we've somewhat agreed to those top two sections. You've got about 0.3 million or $300,000 for that last section. How you guys want to wiggle that around, but I think we could get very granular with this, but it's tough to get granular when I think that some of these numbers are pretty ballpark. So I from my mindset, I think the best path forward is to go, let's figure out how much we want to increase funding on both sides, and then let them take that number and come back to us with more specific numbers, so then we can get more granular in future budget discussions. That's what I think would be the best course of action.
Yep. Councillor Cogan.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, and it's really difficult for me to really put the numbers together. So this is kind of my philosophical view of this, and this is as much for the public as it is for staff and for council. And it has to do with the history, and if you were to look at, for example, the North American auto industry and the Japanese auto industry, the way that they did things was quite different. And it was in the assembly line that it showed up, was that in the GM's assembly line, at the end of the assembly line, they were using a few mallets and stuff to fit the doors so that they would, get everything looking just perfect. And then when they went to the Japanese assembly line, that wasn't happening at the end of that. The doors fit perfectly. And so I think what happened happened here is over time is that, and it was started before with staff, successful plan to get past that, and they've done a pretty bang up job of that, and I think staff has had a big part of that. So for me now is that what we need to do is we need to let them know that there is an appetite for us to put money, because we do that, they're going to, and the interesting part of that is that it's no different than the difference between a good carpenter and a poor carpenter. It's the tools that we give them to do that. And so for me, it's really hard to say, okay, I'm going to put this dollar value on operational and I'm going to put this dollar value on capital. I think that that's something that these bulk numbers have given us an idea about. And I think it's that we really need to be aware that in order for the capital to work, they need to have the tools to make them work. And so that to me is critical, is that now we have an appetite to move some of that money in there, which wasn't something that I came into these deliberations with. And I think there was discussion, when there was that original dollar value that was to be put into the budget, that maybe it should go into reserves. And obviously, messages from staff has been strong enough to say that, hey, great problem here. So I'm happy about the fact that I think we can trust that staff will start to shift this in that direction. I think that we're still going to be the guides of that, but I think we're engineering a future here that is really good. And I don't want the distraction of the service and stuff like that to affect our decision-making process, because we have a lot more information that gives us an understanding of how we have to go to the point where we are able to deliver the service, rather than band-aid something and not be able to do that in the future. So that's my take on this. I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now. I think that once we flesh this out a little bit more, we're going to have something that we can go forward with and feel good about.
Councilor Williams.
I was going to add to that.
Problem is that is using fear, and I don't want to do that.
You didn't say it, but you implied it.
I just implied.
I actually had something constructive to say though, but I was split sort of the same. I had 1.2 for operating and 800 for capital. I thought that split would be pretty fair when I was looking at what priority was. The only thing is with the list, if we do leave it in administration's hands, there's a couple that I think are more important that are lower on the list, but I think they've kind of got that out of the conversation. I think we're all pretty close to where we think it should.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's, I think we've got an idea that we're actually pretty on numbers. So to give some here, let's go through, and we were talking about adding a few things on the optional column 3 under capital, and then the third row under operating. So let's just go through everything in the third column and the third row, and we'll put a priority number on each of them and figure out where we're at, and maybe that's going to sort out our goal, which goes where, because some things are going to just drop off the list entirely. Okay, so let's start on the capital budget, and we'll go with the Blue Ridge Fire Hall roof.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
just with regards to that, if In the second column, it said the hard luck stair replacement, $70,000. If we can do a patchwork on it this year and move $70,000 to next year, is that a possibility?
Let's see how column 3 and row
Okay.
3 work out, and then we'll go back and see if we can maybe scoop out a little bit of
Okay.
column 2 and row 2.
Sounds good.
We'll see how much we gotta scoop out. This, okay, so I hear, I'm thinking 7 yeses on the Blue Ridge Hall, correct? Okay, so I'm gonna go Y7 on that one. Bridge file, 78525 engineering,
Yes.
yes? 7 yes? Airport road pavement gravel sections.
That's something we have to do this year.
It's been gravel forever. That road broke up 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
I'll be the first to say that I'm not on the airport advisory committee. I don't think that my vote yes or no on that is very good quality, just because
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. That's my problem with airport stuff. So I have to take your guys' word on whoever's on that airport.
Just,
Councilor
gonna lean in our Reeve here as, you know, that this is a little bit more in your wheelhouse. What's your opinion on leaving that for another year?
Well, if I get this correctly, the airport road gravel sections, that's just the sections that access the airport, so that's not operational to the airport, correct?
Yeah, it's just the front as you pull into the airport, those two sections that went from asphalt to gravel.
Yeah, so it throws up a little bit of dust, it's a little bit, it doesn't look great, but it doesn't affect the operation of the airport overall, so I'm gonna go with a no for myself on that. You guys can figure out what you wanna do, so.
But yeah, I'd be a no on that.
Is that a no? No. 7 ends?
We'll move it down, yes, for sure.
5 ends?
7's good, yeah.
7? I'm just trying to, this is my rating system.
Yeah, your
Like it's a
worship,
7
why don't we just leave the rating off at the end and then just as you move your
Well,
priorities?
I wanna know, if there's 3 saying yes and 4 saying no, then that's one I can come back to and talk about.
Yeah.
If I've got 7 no's, there's no point in me coming back to it. That's why I'm
Okay.
trying to do it this way, or we'll be here all day. Okay, airport WTP roof replacement.
Yes.
Can I have a question on that one?
Go ahead.
If it's shingles on that roof, is one in Blue Ridge, because then it's a serious yes.
We just had it repaired, I think 3 times last year.
Okay.
Because every time we get a bad windstorm, there's always shingles that we're picking up off the ground.
Okay, then it's a yes.
Told you we shouldn't have cut those trees down.
You were a no on the login.
Okay, so that's a yes. And I'll put a sub note here is metal. So everyone's yes on that?
Yeah, and just so you guys know, for yeses, we're up to $650,000 increase so far.
Again, we'll look at it.
Got lots of no's coming.
Okay, taxiway ENF engineering.
If I remember right, we were just going to put some signs up and do some minor stuff to get through this. This engineering does not have to be done right away, does it?
We are at a kind of a stall for development at the airport. Until we get these numbers in place, then we can kind of help with any future developments there for grades and other stuff. It's so we can move forward with development, and then by moving forward, we also then kind of get away from any potential lawsuits or anything in the future as well. This is to get a firm number out there so that we can actually get proper development out there and get everything built.
Come back to that one.
Yeah, let's keep it.
Come back to it?
Yeah, I mean, my question on that one would be, what's more important, this engineering or the vicinity protection plan, right? I mean,
John, can I weigh in, please?
Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know, I really, from a conceptual point of view, I really think we have to listen to what Steve is saying and carefully consider this. We all know that there's development issues with that airport, and one of them is drainage. And I agree that, you know, if we took this out of the budget, that, you know, we could maybe find a higher immediate need. But the longer we push this off, the longer it takes us to get a real concrete plan. And to Peter's point, this speaks to economic development. So I think we need to be really careful when we consider this one. And I'm out.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one. I got a question mark next to it, kind of a 4334, whatever. We don't know where to go on that one. Briar Patch demolition.
As a yes.
I'll just Councillor Prestige, because we're not sure exactly which way he's leaning on this one. But I think he's on the nose with the safety concerns, especially with the amount of break-ins that we've been having. So, Councillor Williams.
I went by more for a trip either. Yes.
Yes.
The other thing to just keep in mind, if, once that demolition's done, you can also resell that property, so.
And we're gonna build something new on it. That's how you do things. You just get a grant for it and build something brand new. Airport sweeper court.
I was in Mills.
Is that something that can last another season?
I see a nod.
Yeah, it's just efficiency, so if we have issues, we can get back out on the airport, on the runway faster, but it's something that can wait.
Okay,
If I may on that one.
go ahead.
So this is the broom, it's the wire brushes, right?
Yeah, it's actually the core that the wire brushes sit on, so we basically have a separate one sitting there, so if we had a tire blow down or something that happened, it's a quicker switch over. So instead of, I think it'd be like, you know, I think the fact that we've done it is like 3.5, 4 hours. So it's just help with efficiencies.
Shouldn't that go in operations, not capital?
But it's a whole new sweeper, right?
It's a whole new core for the
Yeah, it's a
minimum.
the
Yeah.
core.
There's
So
nothing wrong with the
all
old one.
those-
It's a piece of equipment.
So it's over the capital allowance of $5,000 or whatever our limit is, our threshold.
So we're good for another year then?
That's a roll.
actually, I'll wait.
Okay, so it's not gonna affect our service level, it's an
No, it's
efficiency
just
thing.
from the time we pull off to the time we're able to get back out, when we have to do a brush change, it just shortens that time up and makes our guys' life a little easier.
Okay. Okay, 7, which way are we going?
No.
No? 7 out?
Nope.
All right. Township Road clearing, 584, 120, 121. Can we get an indication from, I'm kind of this one, so.
Through your worship to
Please.
council. That one, in my mind, could maybe wait. If we actually commit to building that road, it may be better to give that to the contractor as part of the work. And then clean it, he'll have the equipment for the road building and do it at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Take that one out.
And Selma Water Station.
You can see that one on, it's about 3/4 done, and it's at the point where, like, we have most of the structure, but they just can't hook up your, so.
The most important part needs to happen. I'm a
Yeah.
yes on that.
Yeah, I'd say that we finish that.
Okay, so. I already have this one crossed out, but.
Yes.
The flagpoles and landscaping, so this is kind of
Low
our,
priority, yeah.
That line doesn't even exist.
kind of our vanity, taking a back seat here, so 7 out?
Yep.
All right. Then Klondike Parking Cemetery.
I don't think, how many years have they been parking there? I think we can shove that one off.
It's a long
I think
time.
it'd be okay to wait.
Yeah.
The other thing, there's talks of like maybe a committee being formed, and then they could decide something with it later on down the
Yeah.
road. So I think it'd be a no for now for me.
Same with me.
I'm gonna put 7 out there. 40-foot double door C-can.
Is it, question.
Go ahead.
Is it critical for training, or is it just a nice to have?
Through the worship, the counselor, 50-50, truthfully. Training is number one, it should be number one, right? And if we can't train our guys to the right standards, we have an issue.
Go ahead.
I think.
Just out of curiosity, I know, like, this would be nice to have, if we can't put it in currently, like through Safely Consulting, they got those blackout cans and stuff in the corner, that's something we could arrange and do training and stuff there, it might save a little bit of money.
Yeah, okay, that's something, sorry, to the worship, to the counselor, that's something we can look into.
Okay. Go ahead. Just,
Well, I guess my question doesn't necessarily have with that one specifically, but I did have a question for administration. In the second column, you've got the airport vicinity protection plan at $50,000 in capital. If that's funded, you've also got $75,000 in operating. Do those come handcuffed together? So that's essentially a $125,000 touch.
Yeah, they go together, yeah.
Okay.
So there is a
To
possibility.
consider while we're thinking about this.
Yeah.
Sorry, Your Worship, through to Councillor William, we'll know that depending on the timing of your next budget meeting. We're putting out that RFP, so we'll actually know the costs associated with that RFP.
Okay.
So that could be an adjustment.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you've got that line item in operating, like,
Yeah.
into the third section of
Yeah.
potential additional resources. And then you've got it in the second column of capital. So I mean, if you include it in the second, it's kind of has to be included into the operating. Otherwise, we just have to cut that whole line item out.
Yeah.
Because you can't do one without the other, correct?
Well, again, unless depending on the length of the project, that's the other thing, right? Because it could take over a year to do that project, based on a consultant's needs assessment and stuff, so.
right. Okay, we're almost done. Last one here. So the C-can is, I'm gonna say that's out, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 7.
Actually, engineering.
Sorry, did I,
Well, we were gonna come back to the taxi engineering.
Oh. Right, yeah, let's do the taxiway engineering. E and F. Where's E and F? Because we don't have an E and F yet.
Apron 3.
It's apron 3?
The redesignation of apron 3 was to go to Echo and Buckshot.
If you guys are tallying up right now our total for capital on the yeses plus the second column, it would be $820,000.
1.200, that's what
Yep. I mean, if we could gain $70,000 for operating by putting hard luck off, just doing a repair job on hard luck and a replacement next year.
Yeah, it's close. Okay, so, the taxiway, is the taxiway just redesignation and lighting and marking and that kind of thing, or is there actual physical engineering to get compaction ratings up?
Right now, we're just redesignating it. This will, the idea of this is to get our grades, to get what we want to our design for that area. So it'd be kind of a document that to be able to take it forward and be able to go through and get to where we need to be, where we choose to be at the airport.
Yeah, okay. Or I'd like to go on this, but I'm too close to this issue, so I'm not even gonna say anything. Councillor Culkin.
Yeah, through the chair to Steve. So in other words, what you're saying is that in order for any of the development to happen, hangars, etc., you have to know what the grade is going to be so that they can build in accordance with that. So this is something we need, it is holding up. Yeah, so I think that just from an economic development perspective, we better start doing something there because, yeah, so I'm in on that one.
Okay. Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair, I'm kind of with Councillor Wilhelm on Hard Luck Canyon.
Yeah.
If we just go in and fix the problem, but then find out, or do an assessment on it, what actually needs to be done. So we could put the accurate number to do it in next year's budget. So, like, we got 70,000 there. Why don't we leave 10,000 in for repairs and an assessment, and,
Well, that'd be putting 10,000 back into operating then. Got a hand up.
60,000.
Councillor Dean.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just coming back to the airport vicinity protection plan, Councillor Wilhelm identified that, that project from a capital point of view gets married to an operational cost. And I'm going to be frank, I don't have a good understanding of what the airport vicinity protection plan is. I'm wondering if we could get just a real quick Coles Notes overview of that.
Okay, let's do that right after we make the hard luck stair conversation, and then we'll move over to that, okay?
Yeah, fair enough, that works.
So do we wanna, where are we on the hard luck?
You bump it back in.
Yeah, I think this replace or the repairs and then bump it back a year, maybe get more value out of something like the engineering.
Sorry, Mr. Twack, did you wanna?
Your worship, council. Those do have a report. So I really feel better that if we could just kind of review that and come back in case they say, here's some repairs you guys can do for 70, as opposed to maybe that is the repairs, but we've got that documented.
It is the replacement, the entire stairs, I know that.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just haven't seen the entire what condition that,
Yeah,
we
what the
can-
recommendations are if it's.
yeah. And I,
Like a lawsuit's more expensive than
yeah,
70,000.
no, and again, we would close the stairs off in the event that the stairs are falling away, which they aren't. I can reassure council that it's the material that was originally used, replacing it to more resistant lumber so that it will hold up for longer periods.
Right.
So your worship, and again, my understanding, and I maybe answer Councillor Dean at the same time, the number I've got is 380,000 in at this point in time, including the stuff at the apron E and F. or 320, depending on if you take that one out. So as a result of the AVPA is a vicinity protection plan that protects the runway as development occurs on typically the south side, because the north side, it drops off quite a bit, but it does take into consideration all sides of the airport runway, and it provides for height, noise, other one that's there too, but so that the airplanes can come in and not worry about any obstructions to the runway.
Okay. Would that AVOP extend into the town, or not AVOP, the protection area? Would it extend as far as the town? Because this is a question I've had on the IDP, because I think there might be an IDP consideration in there as well. Because what we're talking about is height restrictions. I mean, the reason why they built the airport in Edmonton, it was so they could mess around with their high rises downtown. Because that's actually what was screwing them up.
Yep.
Was, so does everybody understand? They changed an entire airport so they could deal with downtown, or downtown would change the airport. So that's how far away the implications can be to airports, especially when you're dealing with, and that was all on the IFR side, so the instrument flight rules approach, because there's very, very stringent requirements on that. So we could have a building or something built inside that protection area that effectively boxes off all the options for the approach on the runway in later years. That's the big kicker with this. We've gotten away with it until now. Is that about fair, Steve?
I don't have a whole lot of information on this side of things. Joan is the one that was dealing with.
Okay.
But from my understanding, that's pretty much correct.
So does that give everybody a good idea what it is? Councillor Dean?
Yes, thank you very much. That's a good explanation. And I guess the next question I have related to that is, from a development perspective, with respect to building heights, etc., can administration give council their best estimate of when this really will become an issue, or if this is planning, in the 5, 10, 20-year planning phase? Is this a really immediate need, or is this something that we should get done sooner than later, but it might be able to be pushed off a year or two?
Your worship, through to Councillor Dean, I guess the risk is always if an individual has a development interferes with the operations of the airport. So that proposal, so the sooner you get dealing with this and protect the airport's protection area, and then the other portion of this is because the regulations around airports in Canada, we have to get their blessing as well. So both the City of Medicine Hat and the Red Deer County, because their airport in Red Deer is in the county, one took 5 years and the other one took 10 years before getting approval from NAV Canada. So even once we get the AVPA, we have to actually get permission to have it as an official document. And that will take time.
Okay.
Just
to follow up.
Just to add to it, I think our economic development officer, Bert Roach, had his hand up as well. So if he's got a little more information, I'll just give him an opportunity.
Thank you, even through to council, and just to back up exactly what Mr. Frank is saying, the sooner the better. I mean, the more certainty we get to industry and potential development, the better off we all are. And with some of the potential we have coming into the county, there may be large structures. And so the better understanding we have of this, the better off everybody would be. So my thinking and advice would be the sooner the better.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Bert. So here's a question to those folks that sit on the MPC. In the situation where a developer wanted to develop something that potentially this protection plan would deny, is there an opportunity to review that development permit, you know, in a radius that we define, and put restrictions on that development, or put it on hold pending an airport vicinity protection plan? Is that feasible?
Only if you want to spend another 10 million on lawyers, because it's not our go zone.
Yeah,
So that's the issue, it's jurisdiction.
well,
Sure, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough, that's good then.
So my understanding of the plan is basically that the plan is created by the municipality in cooperation with Transport Canada, and then actually handed off to a federal authority. And once it's enshrined in the federal authority to protect that vicinity, then the municipality has the ability to say, no, you can't go into this because it's a protected area within the airport. But if you try and say that without the protected area in the vicinity, then you've waded into aeronautics, and that's where the problem is. It's just a jurisdictional thing. So hopefully that makes sense.
So, just a question to that.
Yeah.
So, in other words, right now, anything that's outside, that would be an IDP, you have a referral for, as an APC.
Yeah.
You
can
can,
still-
but you don't have any data that says what can happen there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we had hard luck as out. So what's the thinking on the?
I would like to leave it
In? Okay, is there anything else in the column here that we want to have a discussion about? Yeah, Councillor Prestich.
With the hard look, if we take it out and we find out the report says it needs to be done now, otherwise we have to shut it down, I think we have to look at maybe keeping it there till we get the report back.
It is a pretty well-used place.
Okay. So what are we thinking? It's a mix.
we don't have to
right
get
now,
to-
so let's go. This one's a 50-50, let's say.
So for all the 50-50 plus yeses, we're at $820,000 total
Okay.
increase.
Which would be 1.2 to the,
operational side.
which is not far off.
I thought we were at 880. So I
Councillor
got
Williams.
I think, like, these numbers are, like we've said.
Unless you
they're-
take hard luck, are you taking hard luck out?
No, that was with hard luck. I'll recalculate.
I have the same number as you, 320.
You have 320.
I think,
That's what I have.
I think these are round numbers like we've talked about the whole time. I think if we did 800 to capital and 1.2 to operating, I know we're at 820. I bet you they're gonna find $20,000 worth of savings somewhere in this. I'd be willing to challenge them to that if we put it into a 2% wage increase. I bet you they'll find it.
See?
That's what I'm talking about.
Only.
We even got some,
They'll work some free overtime.
I mean, it's definitely a good starting point, right?
Yeah.
It does limit what we can add on the operational side because some of these numbers are like, it's really only 1 or 2 line items at most additionally, but again, we're not trying to get too granular today, right? The point is to give you guys some ballparks and then you need to start rejigging these numbers for us
They have a priority list now.
on capital.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna work from the bottom up on the third column, third row of the operating page now. See if there's anything we wanna shave out of there. Leadership training and employee retention.
What is that?
Sorry? Go ahead.
With regards to that, like, can you break that down? What does that mean? Leadership
Yeah.
training and employee retention?
I think, your worship, members of council, just so, as you move back into the new normal, and again, that's the new term, is that you're finding that the workforce is becoming more and more competitive in regards to trying to retain and recruit individuals. And as well as this municipality has in the past haven't done a lot of team building, and I think that's part of the leadership training. And again, council has endorsed that. So that was the number to balance. You know, again, there's some I don't know how many employees we're gonna have. I don't know how many employees leave and replace. That is also the number to balance to the $2 million mark as well, so. Yeah.
Good?
I mean, it's good, but do we want to put money into that, or do we want to put money into we in my opinion, we've now got a very tight wiggle room. Essentially, if we do 820,000 to capital, we've got $180,000 on this last column, which isn't much, right? So you don't have much to work with there with the remaining items.
Yeah, I think for me, that one,
I think we should pick our top 3 in this last thing and then let administration try to figure out how to make it work. And if you can shave off other areas and increase others, that's fine by me, but this last one's gonna be a tough one.
Yep.
yeah, this is where, like, I agree. I think we should make kind of a priority list and then challenge administration to see how they see the numbers falling out.
Well, yep, that's what we're trying to do right now, so. So that one is, let's see,
Mid.
5 out of 7?
Middle of the pack for me, yeah.
Are you tipping? This is a crazy grading system.
5 out of 10? Sure.
Trying to keep track of it.
5 out of 10.
We've got like 2 rating systems going on.
Remuneration, salaries, and wages, 2%.
I think this one's very important.
Yeah, I ranked this one the highest.
Okay. Getting 7. Yes? All right, general planning services. What does this mean? Whenever I see general,
With no explanation.
Muzzled. my PTSD gets triggered.
General
when I hear
planning
it.
services? Sorry. Is that what you're asking?
General planning services, yeah.
I just have to go over. Again, so we retain a consultant from time to time to an actual planner that has a degree, and that we use that individual for professional advice on things that come up from time to time, as well as we've used that individual when the manager of planning is on vacation.
Okay. Airport vicinity protection, so that, and that goes hand in hand with the other one?
Yeah, so your worship, and again, the RFP is in the process of being let out in a month's time. We usually tend to give 3 weeks, so by the end of November, we'll actually have a firm number on that.
Okay, so we discussed that one, it's in or it's out?
I think if we have the VPP, whatever we called it,
Capital, it's gotta be in there.
they got their handcuffed together, which then now we're down to only 120,000 available. That's why I wanted to ask about that one was,
So
if
your
we allow
worship,
one, we have to allow the other essentially.
yeah, and again, I think by the end, and I'm only speculating that the next budget meetings will be towards the end of November, first part of December. At that point in time, we'll have that refined and saying, yes, we need that money, or no, we can reduce it.
Yeah. So I think, I don't even.
So I would
that's just
leave it
kind of
out.
An X, we have to keep it or a star.
I'm curious if we do, because I like, in here, it's in the second column as an optional, and here it's in the third column as a.
Yeah, it wasn't in the first.
They weren't
column
married
goal.
together in the presentation, so why are we marrying them together when admin didn't?
Right, and again,
You're not
but-
sure.
That's right, that's the problem.
But you'll know,
That's correct.
okay. So it's a,
Or the
I'm
proposal.
not sure.
Okay.
But before we make a final, but so if we have to marry them together, we are, what, 7 out of 7 or 4 out of 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we admitted we wanted it in capital, so then we have to keep it
So
in.
that gives you your importance level on this. If they're married together, they're married together. If they're not, then we can shave a little. Triple program reintroduction.
It's a
I'm
huge
gonna-
cost.
Go ahead.
It's a huge cost.
Yeah, it is. I'm just gonna ask a question of infrastructure. How long has it been since we stopped doing shoulder pulls, and how important is this, and does it work to our drainage, and like, just give us an idea as council.
Your worship, council, it's been a few years since we've done actual full-blown shoulder pulls. If we are gonna be doing some ditching and culvert work, I feel that may be good for this year to get us going again. I don't know that pulling this one's gonna make a big difference to us.
I think hold
EC2
off.
graders.
I'm gonna go to Councilor Prestige and Councilor Culkin.
Through the chair, I kind of agree. I'd sooner see the ditching done over the shoulder poles, because the ditching to me is more important than the shoulder poles.
Councilor Culkin.
Yeah, this would just be a question. Once you have a little bit more detailed information on this asset management, will it become more clear where and what we should do as far as shoulder pulls are concerned? Or is that just an ongoing thing?
Yeah, I'm not too sure that is picked up with that sort of data, as far as if shoulder pulls are needed or not. I think it's gonna be more of a field observation, where you've got a 7-meter road and then now it's an 11-meter road kind of thing is where, you know, I think it's just up to the guys out in the field to make recommendations on them.
Okay.
If it's not in the asset management plan, then we're making the wrong asset management plan. Like, this is my fear on the asset management end of things, is that I have a vision of I think council's got a pretty good vision of really, I understand that it might not be in it right now, but it should be at some point. Especially if you're talking about going,
Shoulder
what did you say,
pulls,
going from,
sorry.
yeah, well, you're going from a 7-meter road to an 11-meter road, and you're.
That's just an example, like some of the
over
roads,
time.
yeah, they do widen out over time, they squish out.
Right.
And I'm not the expert on the assess, or the capital asset side of it, like,
Yeah.
I know that they're looking at the surfaces of the roads, drainage of the road, so the ditching could pick up, in essence, could do this similar to what a shoulder flow would do as well,
Right.
at the same time.
And,
Yeah.
there's, okay, go ahead.
So the road data that we've collected so far, they did measure during the rural road study last summer, the width of every single road. So we have the width of the road, and we have a condition assessment done on the road. So then the follow-up would be when you're going back to that road, you're not gonna measure the width of it every year, but periodically, you're gonna be measuring the width of the road, so you would be able to see over time how that changes. So we would know, like 120 is obviously really wide, right? So that's gonna show up on there as a wider road. So we do know how wide the roads are.
Because if we've got, and I think this is the thing that people get tired of when it's on their road, and they watch years. So if it takes 3 or 4 years and their road goes from this to squashed out like this, and it's just in 1 or 2 sections, rather than doing shoulder pulls and piling that crap back up into the middle, literally crap, because that's what it is. Why are we not doing a better job of keeping that road from squishing out in the first place, which was my understanding of the asset management plan, because we can concentrate that in that area where we're getting that squish, but if we don't have the data on it, then, so I know I'm going down a bit of a thing, but I think this is gonna make a big difference, so that, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I explaining this right?
Yeah, Your Worship, members of council, I think you're absolutely right. That data would be captured and the asset management would identify areas of where we have to require shoulder pulls, right? Whether it's sections or the entire road over time. Again, no road, and again, remember, some of your roads are built 50 years ago and haven't had a lot of attention because it might be for various reasons, right? There's not a lot of traffic. And over time, that road has flattened out. And a shoulder pull is to bring that back up so that we can keep the water away from the base, right? And drain properly and hold its structure, right? So, and as a result of that, that would be in here over time. So,
Right.
yeah, it would become a typical maintenance program.
Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair. The shoulder pulls are an important part of looking after our roads, because over time, the road squishes out. When we do our grader beats, the grader blade's only so wide. So what ends up happening is at the edge of the road, you get a lip because the grader blade can't reach it. You have to make 4 passes down the road to do it. So what happens is along that lip on the edge of the road, the water sits there. And it gets put the crown back on the road, so when the water runs off, it goes down into the ditch. It doesn't get hung up on the side of the road. So it is important. Do we have to do it this year? Probably not.
So my concern is though that when we talk about things like shoulder pulls, so if we have a road that we're doing shoulder pull on every year or 2 years or something along those lines, because it's doing that, we have a problem with the road. And where people get frustrated is doing the same thing over and over again and it not fixing the problem. So I just want to make sure that since we're on this topic and we've got everybody in the room, we're not looking to do necessarily more of the same thing. We don't want to do more. We want to figure out why is it that we're having to do shoulder pulls in this one section of road, and are we further ahead to just fix the darn thing and stop doing some of this over and over and over again? And I know it's going to be, it depends on the traffic, it depends on how the height of the road, the crown of the road. It depends on a lot of variables, and that's the this asset management plan. And if I, again, going off topic and acting like a cheerleader for this, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands. And I don't think I'm alone on saying this. I think council is pretty together on the idea of this, are we not? That it's to fix underlying problems, not just keeping doing more of the same, so.
And your worship, members of council, I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's one of the things that we as an organization, and I'm talking to our staff, have recognized that we are changing the way we look at things in everything from accounts payable to road maintenance, right? So, and asset management is the tool that helps make analytical decisions.
Okay. Let's move along here to, so get.
Put it in the wish list.
Yes, okay. Update the investment profiles. What does this do for us exactly?
You missed the board cameras,
What did I miss?
the new board room cameras.
Oh, no, we're way below that.
We're starting at bottom, we're going bottom up.
Bottom up.
Bottom line.
Oh, no, sorry, I removed my, I checked, sorry, I
You already
redid my.
cut, you already cut some out.
Sorry, okay.
What does updating the investment profiles mean exactly? I see Bert's got his hand up in the air.
Thank you, your worship, and through the council. So we have the agricultural profile. We have a wrinkle into the provider with, and we'll be able to get an ag profile out. But the best way to do it would probably be to put a little bit more money into projects of that style and similar economic profiles. And in the past, when I've done these kinds of things, they generally roll in at $5,000. If there's an ad revenue component, it can go back to whatever composing or editing company that we hired to put together. 20,000 would give us a very good window to be able to do one profile each year on each of our 4 major industries, so that we always have current market information that we can bring to site selectors and possible investors to say, here's what our industry picture. That was the idea for putting that in. So part of that money may be needed to finish the profile underway, so that we can get that out to you for the beginning of next year. But it would certainly be so that we would have something that would be sustainable within the ECDET budget over time, so that we can continue to make sure we're bringing the best possible economic information, especially on our major industries, out to possible potential investors and to the revenue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Koken.
Well, this is one of the areas that I think needs to be, really, we're completely underfunded in economic development province-wide. And, I think that, right now at this point is taking a leadership role, trying to figure out how to do this economic development, not only here, but on a regional level, because it's not working the way it needs to work. And I say that because we've done a really good job on the tourism component with Wild Alberta, but that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the one that generates the least amount of return to the municipality as far as taxable benefit, even though it may help the operators as such. So I'm very aware that if we want to entertain getting bigger businesses involved here, we have to fund our economic development. Because there's no way that we're going to be able to increase our industrial assessment or anything like that unless we put some effort in there. So I'm in full support of, I guess, that component, the profile component, and the chamber and the sight link.
Councilor Prestige.
Through the chair, part of the problem is our rec dev department is underfunded, what needs to be done. And we're capped at a 1% increase on that. So the only other option is to do this. We just fund economic development more so they can do this stuff. 'Cause our hands are tied in that department.
Bert?
So just to kind of further reinforce some of the great decisions that council's been discussing and making over the last 2 days,
Oh, don't drive by.
without going directly into the ECDEV budget, the idea of having that site in Blue Ridge market ready so that we have the potential to bring new developments in there, that's fantastic to see that on the table. Understanding that your council is working to solve some of the development barriers and issues and answer some of the feedback and things we've seen at the airport, another absolutely perfect example. We know that this is a council that is very open to development, and what we need to do is to make sure that all of those other investments you've made now have the right specific economic development tools to be able to bring those to market properly to make sure we can finish the job.
Thanks, Bert. He's in sales.
I want to invest here.
Is that true? Oh, sorry, didn't realize.
If any of the other departments wanna come to you. Just charge for it.
And just to that point, that's what's made this so much fun, is just the team effort. I mean, I've always said, we're all economic developers. It is a team effort. It's about putting the whole product out there. And council's discussion has been very analytical, very pointed. You're addressing the issues we've had in the past. You're looking at how can we grow the tax base. It's been great.
We didn't talk once about how many staples we're using. Councilor Colkin.
Well, and one of the fears that I have, if we don't move this needle a little bit in the municipality is that we looked at some of the other projects that are out there. For example, one that we had looked at was where the organization really doesn't have any value because it only really funds itself by the grants that it gets. And I don't want to be in that position. I want to be in a position where when we invest some dollars that we actually can see some tangible results at the end. And I think that right now Woodlands is on the right path to that. We haven't got a complete picture yet, but I think we can develop that.
Okay. So I'm hearing in. Yes?
Yeah, I'm in.
All right.
I don't want to be the only downer in the room or anything, but I think most of the departments are probably underfunded. This, I think, is important as well. It's just, we've already said yes to 200 and...
There's 2 million in equipment here. They're gonna find it. Don't worry.
They're gonna find some efficiency. So, yeah, that's the only problem. We're saying a lot of yes. It's like we almost need this entire column if we...
This is not to make the final right now.
Oh, no, I know.
This is to get an idea of where we are on the importance. The reality is, in the past where somebody stopped a councillor on the street and said, why would you make this decision, or why do you spend more money here and not there? Now the entire council is aware of why we're doing the things. The admin is together, is in the room with us, so we know the value of where the money's being spent. This isn't a process that's happened before. I think it's valuable for council. So these are broad reaching to right now. We'll get more ruthless here in a minute. So
I was gonna say, it's kind of like having your Christmas wish list in front of you, going through, picking out all the things you want, then you gotta go through after and have mom and dad tell you no on something, but
Hope the
it's kind of
Grinch-
where, it's
hope
kind of
the
where we're going
Grinch-
here.
hope the Grinch doesn't show up too bad. Some of them, all of them. Okay, so speaking of the Grinch, hi Jeremy, you're back.
Sorry,
No,
guys, I couldn't
sorry.
wait. I had to go to the bathroom.
We were just on the update investment profiles. How are you feeling about that one?
Funding a little bit more is smart. I don't know specifically on those three things which is more important to me, but I think economic development should be funded.
Okay,
We should try to increase it in some way.
all right. Now we got chamber
That
events.
wasn't very grinchy.
No, I know. I'm trying to keep this as light as we can, a heavy topic light, so.
I'm just joking. It's all good.
Chamber events.
In the interest of trying to support the chamber a little bit more and have more of a presence, I think it's something we gotta try to keep in if we can.
The chamber has been a big supporter of the county, and I think we should support that.
I think so as well. I think that, it's our link into Whitecourt as well. There's a lot of good people that sit there, so I think we need to support that.
Okay, site link. Counselor
And in the
Kush.
interest of economic development and stuff, what we had happen this year, being able to, was incredible for the area. If we can, again, try to keep this in, I would love to try to keep it in.
Is this a hosting value? Sorry, is that what that
I'm just, Professor Plum has his hand up there in the back of the room, so I'm gonna recognize Bert, and he can,
Thank you, your worship, and through to council. I hope that's a reference to the purple on my
Yes.
shirt and not my high blood pressure. No, so the cycling part of it, yes, certainly we did have a $5,000 component that we leveraged along with other municipalities and some other sponsors in order to be able to host it this year. I'm happy to report that we have now had 2 other communities that have taken on the cycling conference for the next 2 years. So next year it will be in Lac La Biche County. Year after it will be down in Red Deer County, and hopefully year after that back to Greenview County. So with the opportunity and the likelihood of it being within our backyard, the opportunity then with this 5,000 would be for us to be a sponsor and to send at least 2 representatives for the conference so that we know for sure we'll be in Lac La Biche. So it's just to be able to further build and continue that relationship with Paige Webster, who's the main sponsor and the principal with it, and then with whichever site selectors Paige brings in.
okay. So the 5,000 is to support the program, it's not for necessarily sending the people, that would be a different fund.
Well, and the way that Lac La Biche is doing the funding this year, they've actually committed $75,000 from their municipal budget to be a direct single sponsor. So we're not sure if there'll be a sponsorship package for it this year. So that 5,000 would be for us to make sure we have as solid as we can. If it's 3 attendees and no sponsorship, that would be even better.
Okay. All right, where are we?
I think that one's a nice to have.
Yep.
We'll see.
All right, boardroom cameras.
We can do this
Cool.
for another year.
Yeah,
If the cameras get any better, we're gonna have to start doing makeup before them.
Your worship, members of council, it's not your cameras here, these are fine. It's the cameras in our 2 boardrooms that we use to link on site. Bringing it, so that we can draw into the individual speaking, but again, we can wait, it's not crucial, we'll take it up.
Okay. Municipal census.
One of the things, your worship, members of council, I know this was in last year's budget, or actually this year's budget, 2022, and council did remove it at the spring finalization of the budget, but I believe with the ICF, one of the stumbling blocks, or not stumbling blocks, the the arbitrator said that we have to use Alberta Municipal Affairs census data. So one of the things that the town is how do you do that, right? And I think it's important because we don't break it down by census or by division when we submit to Alberta Municipal Affairs. And in order to get an accurate picture of that for Division 2, 3, and 4, as well as the other divisions, so that we can identify those are the accurate numbers. So that's what we're asking consideration for.
Councilor Wilhelm?
So I think this is one thing that I had asked for. Try to do if we can, if only because our shift as an organization is more data driven, and more data. Right? We have to do this year where one I understand, but a municipal census sooner rather than later is going to help us with decision making in the future, and of course. As the CEO said, if we end up in a position where we have to start negotiating with our area municipalities close to us, having this data of where our residents are located, what our population base is, and where they are, will help with those negotiations and conversations.
Yeah, necessary,
Evil.
yeah, I didn't want to finish that sentence.
We haven't.
This is 2016. The last municipal census was done in 2011 or 12. I think 11 is the federal, and we did one year after 2012.
And I think there's some critical questions we can raise with that census. Could help drive our strategic planning in the future.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I was going to mention that two together, so yeah. All right. Yeah.
We're way above budget, by the way.
Oh, I know. It's okay though. We're gonna save a lot of money on lawyers this year.
I hope so.
You're trying to keep a straight face, but.
No, Your Worship, I anticipate that eventually that number will actually go down, so. Legal bylaw policy updates, this is to add to admin's administration budget as we move towards to update our policies that we believe from time to time we would ask for additional legal advice on bylaws and policy. And I think that's one of the emphasis that is in the strategic plan for 2023 is to do the policy bylaw updates. So we'll be more active in 2023.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
So with regards to that, if we do not add this to additional funding, does that then now make that line item in the strategic plan not accomplishable?
No, Your Worship, members of council, it just simply means that we'll make sure that when we'll have to target it more versus that there might be a need to hold off with that legal advice and just go from best practices, right?
Okay. Keep saying yes to a lot of stuff here. We gotta put a no in eventually. Who's gonna say no?
I'll say no.
Yeah, I'd be a no on that one.
I think we're doing a lot more in policy now with the creation of the GNP and I think we're gonna have to figure that one out as we go. It's not a ton of money, but. Okay. I'm gonna say out.
Okay.
Yes? Bicentennial funding. Can somebody explain this to me like I was two, just so I get it? Bert, you've got your hand up.
Allow me, your worship.
Okay.
Right. This is, the bicentennial funding is scheduled, the bicentennial committee is scheduled to come to council November 23rd to present their budget. They would like to, and I use Councillor Culkin's thing, to us to backstop in the event that they don't receive grant funding from arts and culture in the various grants that they've applied. So this can be re-looked at in the spring budget to see whether or not it's required or not.
And it's the bicentennial for the fort, right?
20, yeah. They're 200 anniversary of a Hudson Bay establishment.
Sounds like another cost share item.
Well, and I think one of the things that I've discovered being involved a little bit with the committee is that this is not just a bicentennial as far as Woodlands is concerned, or Fort Assiniboine. It's a bicentennial of the very history of Alberta, which is far greater than just Woodlands County in Alberta. So it just happens to be that the Fort Assiniboine is the focal point because of the development of the fort there. So, you know, one of the things that we did do is we you know, and Bert may be able to help me out with this a little bit, is that we did spitball this number, and it's there basically because if you're going to plan this and you have no organization, you have no funding, and you have nothing. So I guess the question is that from an economic development perspective, this is going to, you know, increase Woodland's profile, and but I don't believe that number is written in stone. That was a number that we said, what would it take to put on a hell of a celebration? Right now, there's going to be probably 4 or 5 different municipalities involved. Each one of them will have their own budget. This is specifically designed to backstop. And I think the number is high. Can you help me out there a bit, sir? Bert?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship, and through the council. And so we have, council, of course, has put the museum committee for the fort in charge of the steering committee for the event. We've had several planning meetings so far. The intent is to get 1,500 people on the ground for 4 to 5 days in Fort Assiniboine from July 5th to 10th. As part of that, we have the Voyageur Paddling Brigade that could have up to 20 canoes that will be coming through the area using the river. They will have seven stops, including 2 days in the fort. And so there is the ability, because one stop will actually be at the Blue Ridge Rec area, there is the ability for us to leverage that stop, put some of that money possibly towards an event or something that would help us to bring in Blue Ridge and maybe the southern part of the municipality as part of that. As Councilor Copeland mentioned, we do have Barhead County that is sitting at the table, and Barhead is looking at when the Voyageur Brigade does their stop after Fort Assiniboine at the Vega Ferry crossing and in Chisholm, that there would be some potential things that Barhead would do there. So it really can be a regional celebration of our fur trading history. We've reached out to a number of our Indigenous partners as well to see in what way they would want to participate. What's exciting is with the new school curriculum, there is an actual mention of the Fort Assiniboine Fort. And so we actually have through Pembina West Hills School Division and through the school, they actually have a week at the beginning of June where they're bringing in kids, about 750 kids total in June from other schools within the region to the fort to do tours and do some hands-on with some so there is to be more than just that 4 days. And the committee has applied through the CIP grant program for a $75,000 grant. We should know sometime in January whether or not that money's coming forward, but there's certainly the ability for the county to backstop or be the discussions around the table, I think there would be a lot of very satisfied and happy local residents for that area to see some level of county support to support their history and their heritage.
Okay. Ooh.
Well, it sounds like this one can be pushed off to the spring, right?
Yep. Yeah, probably reduced a little bit and pushed off to the spring.
Yeah, I, just from a perspective of just the preliminary budget process that we went through, is that I would think that, probably half that number would be more than enough to get the initial stuff started.
Even if we left the line at 100,000 as it is, if there's other grant funding and stuff coming in later on, but this could be a complete new point in the spring when we get into our finalized budgets, and that money could be allocated for other stuff out there. But I do believe that we need to keep a line for some form of funding for this in the budget. There are sometimes cost overruns or whatever. I think we should leave that at 100 for right now until we see what the actual numbers and stuff come back at. Not saying that's what's going to be spent, but.
Councilor Prestige.
Through the chair, this is 100,000 to put on the whole show, right? So other municipalities are joining in. Are they gonna be putting money into it too?
No, this was specifically for what was gonna happen in Woodlands County. What we basically have decided is that once the Voyageur Brigade leaves here, even though that bicentennial celebration is because the river was the highway, those municipalities that want to participate would have to fund that themselves.
Bert?
Thank you very much. So through to council and to Councilor Prestige, there is a corporate partnership program. Some interest from co-op and some other possible businesses for that so far. So there will be a partnership program through the next program, how the group is going to reach out and all of that, and the private world, because there's certainly an opportunity for a number of other groups and individuals to be involved too. That's all within the works, but at this stage it's still pretty early on within the game on the planning side.
So how much would everyone hate me if I suggested we cut it back to 75 and pushed it for consideration in the spring?
I would agree with that.
Wow, okay. Thought I was gonna get things thrown at me.
Don't worry, Johnny boy, it's not gonna happen.
Coming? All right, air photos. So this is the orthos for Joan?
That's correct, yours.
Does everyone know what these are?
Yep.
The LiDAR photos? How old are her photos now? Because I think we did this.
2020.
I think it's 2 years ago. I remember having this discussion at a budget one time and things were being thrown at me. I know she's gonna hate me, but I'm thinking we wait a year on this.
Yeah, they're 2019 photos that were, so they're,
So we put them in the 19 budget to be done in 2020, right?
they get done in 19 and then available for 2020
Yeah.
process, right? Depending on the year, they try to fly them in June before leaf
Those
cover,
are- yeah.
right? And then if they can't do it, they wait till the fall to finish them.
Councillor Fulton.
I know that within conversations with Joan, and this is one of the tools that they really use a lot. Like it's kind of a, so You know, I'm torn on this one because this again is, you know, we have municipal department that's understaffed. So I guess the question is that what would be the minimum that we would allow, and what would the use, like, you know, how current do we have to be to have effective use?
Counselor Williams.
How much does this get done? Like I mean, is it 120,000 for the whole county, or is this something that we should break up and do it in thirds?
It's
over
cheaper to do it all.
all together?
Yeah, that's,
Okay. I just don't appreciate this.
so again, from 2012 and then 2016 and 2020, right? So, again, if you look at, I don't, can you see? How come
Sorry,
yours
you
isn't-
said 2012, 2015, and 2020?
Yeah. I actually go back to 2007, 2012, 2016, and 2020.
Sounds like
Again,
4 to 5
always
years.
understanding that it's always a year behind. So-
Right.
So if you look at the four, and it looks like we do them every 4 years,
Yeah,
so
we can push this.
we can push this back. And not that once we remove the whole tire patch, then we can use that money for the following year for this.
Sure. And you know what, we can, I'll tell Joan it was your idea, so that's good.
As long as we're all in agreement.
Yeah, we agree with Gord.
Great suggestion, Gordon.
Thanks, Gordon.
They
Yeah.
twisted our arm.
Yeah. She's not here.
Okay, well, it is in the third column here, and the rationale actually makes sense on the 4 years, so. Hearing out? Out, okay.
I mean, if she really wanted it, she'd be here right now, right?
Yeah, Bert.
Joking. Joan. Just joking.
Bert showed up, right?
All right, infrastructure staff support, 6 months. What is, the asset management fees?
I think this one's important.
Yeah, I said yes.
Yeah, I said yes to this one already.
All right. Counselor Prestich.
Chair to where did the money come all the other years that we hired the support staff?
But it's, I'm not staff.
Through the council, so some of the money in the past, when we did the road study, the grant for some of that. And then also this year doing the culvert data collection, we had $20,000 from FCM, but I think Lance has far exceeded that. So this position would be to finish collecting the culvert data. There's not that much left, and then to continue with the data. So it's kind of giving Andre's staff back, because we don't want to hire a summer student for a lot of this stuff. We'd rather have a more experienced staff. So then he's been without people. So it's to help supplement his group.
My question, we have our infrastructure support staff to help with the asset management, and a couple lines up there, we also have an asset management coordinator position. If we're adding an extra person for asset management, how much else can we roll into that other position? You know, kind of help you between two positions.
I think you could add some, have that coordinator collect some of the data, but we don't know who we're getting for sure. And I think you want someone experienced to be collecting the data. And there's more data to collect than just that. So I think if we got that stuff done, we would still continue to collect more, because yeah, we still have a lot more to collect. So I think it's important to have that infrastructure support person.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Counselor Prestich.
We're asking a lot of our asset management team to want all this information, and I hate to see us tie their hands by not giving them the tools to do it.
And if I get this correct, the the support staff is kind of the soldiers in the field, and the asset manager coordinator, that's the general at the helm.
I would agree to some of that, yeah. I mean, I think between the two, we could tag team a lot of stuff and get stuff done.
Right.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to, when you guys are talking about the ditching program, and some of the data. So we haven't been able to show you all the data we've collected, but we do have the road widths, and when we were doing that, we're also collecting the ditch depths, the slopes, the grade of the road. So we have all that data, and now that Lance has also been collecting the culvert condition data, he's coming back letting us know these ones are critical, these ones are poor. Critical being they're pretty much completely plugged. So if we can start layering that on top of where the ditch is less than half a meter, and we broke it out like half a meter, 1 meter, 1.5, layer those along with the condition of our overall road, then when like it goes to design the ditching program, we're able to pick out the spots that need to be hit the most. And we're also evaluating risk with our critical assets. So we're getting good data. We just haven't been able to show you guys all of the data yet.
Okay. Okay, so I'm hearing. Everyone? All right, how far over are we here?
My head a lot without even using a calculator.
So,
Go ahead.
your worship, members of council, we've captured that. We know the council has agreed to reallocate the $2 million. If council would allow us to now refine that and go back and relook at some of our programs, and again, and that's everything from starting at the $3 million in capital and getting some actual numbers in the study. I think we'll bring you back a version, and there may be very little over or maybe under, hopefully.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Councillor Dean, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to come back to that that last item, the infrastructure support staff. I note in the notes it says will require a county vehicle, and I'm just wondering if you know, does that have then a capital implication, or is that just there's a vehicle that would be used by somebody that's available? We're not going to have to purchase or lease a vehicle.
Gord's gonna give up his truck.
Yeah. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm walking to work, yes.
What about one of
Sorry,
the old graders? Could they
Kara's
drive that?
Kara's just gonna answer.
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Dean, that the position would have a truck just within our overall fleet. So it's not purchasing an additional vehicle, just that they would use one to be traveling.
Okay, did you hear that, Councillor Dean? There's no, it goes to the fleet, not, there's not an additional vehicle required.
Yeah, heard it. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Anything else? We,
I think they have a lot of hard work ahead of them now.
yeah, they do. We'll take a break, and then we'll just make sure that we've got everything captured here. And then we've got to do. Where are we here? I guess, yeah, we're, is everyone happy?
I am.
We had the discussions we want to have?
Yep.
And, Mr. Frank, you've got everything you need from?
Am I happy? Is that what you're asking, your worship?
No, I don't really
Yes, I
care
am.
if
You're
happy.
smiling. Al, do you still have your hand up, or is that from before?
Councillor Dean?
Sorry, forgot to take it down. Forgot to take it down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thanks for the reminder.
Everything you need to hear? You've got an idea?
Yes, yeah.
of where we're thinking? Okay.
I was very happy with the discussions. Great information sharing.
Okay. So, someone prepared to make a motion then on the budget discussion? We just wanna, send it to you for information, or?
Well, again, I think you reallocate the funds from as uncollectible allowance count as discussed. And then if you can set the next meeting and then go into closed session and then take your break, and then the individuals that are watching the stream can go about their day.
Okay. All right, who's prepared to make it? Sorry, there you go, Counselor Wilhelm.
I'll make a motion that council direct administration to prepare the 2023 budget in accordance with the financial recovery plan and to reallocate the funds from account as discussed.
Thank you, Counselor Wilhelm. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. We need a couple of dates. How far out do you want to go on these dates?
Yeah, you're right, members of council. My understanding is we're looking at the week of the 28th. If Councillor Dean is then back available.
Can you guys hear me? Am I?
Yes, yeah,
on
go
mute?
ahead. Go ahead, Counselor Dean.
I'd have to check with my wife, but I believe until the 30th.
And you're gone December 1st, from December 1st on.
I think so, December 3rd.
Are you saying towards the end of November because you need that much time?
No, because of your guys' schedule, I think. Well, we do need a little bit of time, but I don't think our
28th,
schedules
29th,
are.
30th.
I'm gonna be gone.
What about the week of December 5th?
Yeah, that works. Yep.
Day that week I'm not available is the 5th.
Can we do it later in the week? Like
8th,
7th, 8th?
8th.
The 7th is the scheduled council meeting.
I don't have it on my calendar, so it doesn't exist yet. That's future John's problem.
Yeah.
So
8th.
8th.
It's a community services meeting that I scheduled as well.
9,
What about the 6th?
6.
6th, I'm
I'd only be available in the evening on the 6th.
I can do 6 in the evening. So I can do 6 in the evening.
Here,
Can we check today with daytime? Could we go daytime on the 8th?
I can do daytime on the 8th. What about evening 6th, daytime 8th?
Evening the 6th looks good for me.
Those work for me.
evening of the 6th. Do we need, we don't need to drag staff back for this again, do we?
They'll do their presentations on their budgets, the changes. Which, again, you're only looking at a 1% increase, so there's not a lot of changes. We're just basically reallocating funds within their budgets, if anything.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I asked about, because of power rates and gas rates are going up through the roof, and I said to Mr. World, I says, oh, we got to look at that in the budget. And he said, oh no, I looked into it, and he says, we signed a 5-year contract at very reasonable rates.
You signed a contract.
Okay.
More reasonable than today.
But at least they're consistent, right? So it's only the power usage and the gas usage that.
Right. Okay, so evening of the 6th work for everybody?
Yeah.
I can make that work. Councillor Dean, yes? Evening of the 6th?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Are we doing 7:15 or 7?
You can start earlier, I'm completely off.
Are we doing 5?
I couldn't do any earlier than 6.
That's 6 for me as well, cause I'm coming out of the city.
Do 6.
So you wanna do 7 then?
6 will work, I can drive fast.
You want supper and then we'll do a working supper?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so the motion would be November, December.
December 6th evening. 6:30 or 6 o'clock.
We're gonna need a second meeting date?
Well, we'll schedule the second depending on what you do on the 6th, right? So
What kind of a gap do you need between them? Can we do it later in that?
they'll be consecutive, right? So see, everything will be done by the 6th or ready.
We need, we'll do the day of the 8th, if pending, if required. Just let's put it in there, otherwise people are gonna book stuff into those days.
That's why we asked for 2 days.
Yeah, so evening of the 6th and the day of the 8th, you're saying?
At 9 o'clock.
Yep. Does that work for Councillor Dean?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Everyone else? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And December 8th at 9 a.m. All right, who wants to make that motion?
I'll make a motion, the council establishes December 6th at 6 o'clock PM and December 8th at 9 o'clock AM, 2022 for further budget deliberations.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Councillor Dean?
In favor.
Thank you. That is passed, and then we can move into committee of the whole. So, motion to move into committee of the whole.
Motion that council moves into committee of the whole under FOIP section 17 and 19.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Dean?
Sorry, I muted myself. I'm in favor.
Thank you. Okay, we're in closed session. I'll wait for Nikita to tell us that we're out. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We are back from closed session, and under item 4, we've got a couple of motions arising out of that. So on 4.1, oh, sorry, and I've got to also acknowledge that we had one counselor on the online. We had some technical issues, so he is now sitting right here on via telephone, and that's Councillor Dean. So we have a full, all 7 counselors here. So I'm gonna go to item 4.1. Who's gonna, Councillor Cush?
Move the council appoints Ryan McLaughlin and Linda Renford to serve as members at large in the Ag Service Board from November 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. That's passed. 2. Councillor Prestige.
Yes, I'll make a motion that council appoint Shelley Hiddle to serve as member at large on the Economic Development Committee from November 1st to October 31st, 24, and advertise for vacant position.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Prestige. Any discussion? All
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. And number 3, that's our MPC, Councillor Williams.
Make a motion that council appoints Dallin Keeler to serve as member at large on the Municipal Planning Commission from November 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. And number 4, that's
Motion that council Andrew Clegg and Jeanette Williams to serve as members at large for the S Subdivision and Development Appeal Board and advertise for the vacant position.
Okay. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Councilor Dean.
I'll motion that council appoints Tina Pradaniuk and Tracy Mitchell to serve as members at large on the Community Services Committee from November 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2024.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Wilhelm. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Councilor Dean. And one more, Councilor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council appoints Rebecca Erickson to serve as member at large on the Community Services Committee for November 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2023 for a one-year term.
Very good. Any discussion on that one? All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Councilor Dean. And that concludes our meeting. Anyone want to make a motion for Councilor Kush?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
All right. All in favor?
In favor.
We are adjourned.